Okay, so this part of Romanza, we're going to add our first bar chord. And this is called a half bar, so we're only going to cover about half of the strings. And you've probably been taught over and over again, most likely by me, that you should have your fingers curved while you press down the frets on the left hand. But when we do a bar, we really flatten our first finger a lot, right? So it needs to be totally flat, or sometimes even bent backwards at the knuckle a little bit. You can see how mine actually bends back when I do a shorter bar. The more it does, the more of a bar, the more strings that you cover, the flatter your finger has to be. But if you're back to with just a couple of strings, sometimes you actually end up arching backwards a little bit with that knuckle too. So if your finger's doing that because that first knuckle's a little bit flexible, that's totally fine to do. It's actually really useful later for hinge bars and things. So the plan is to go from 12, 10, 8, which we got to in our last video, pinky on 8, and then we're going to lay down the bar. But before we do that, we're actually just going to try getting 2 strings at the 5th fret covered with just our index finger, so a 2-string bar, and just take your thumb and make sure both of those are working. Sometimes I teach my students this 80s tune that's kind of fun to do with a 2-string bar. You can do 2 strings, the first 2 strings barred with your index, and you can play 8 4 times, then 6 twice, 3 twice, and then back to 6. You might recognize this from an 80s tune. All right, kind of fun. So that's a kind of nice way to warm up your bar with just 2 strings. And then for our song, the first one we need is called a half bar because we're covering half the strings. So now we're going to try that at 5th fret and play all the notes. And make sure they all work, make sure they're all ringing. If one's a little bit weak, like that maybe, that's okay. As your hand gets stronger and more flexible, it'll come. Don't not practice this just because one note doesn't work, right? Just kind of power through and expect over time for it to work better and better. So we're going to start from 12, 10, 8, 10, 8 with our pinky, and then half bar with our index finger, and our pinky is at the 8th fret. The melody that's above this bar is 8, 7, 5, 5, 7, 8. So that means while I hold this half bar, I'm going to play an 8th fret on the first string with my pinky, and then a 7th fret with my ring finger. And then I'm going to let go so that I get a 5th fret from the bar itself, and then I have another 5th fret, then a 7th fret, and then an 8th fret. So it kind of walks down 8, 7, 5, and then it walks back up 5, 7, 8, back the way it came. And then the last little change in this section is that we play our thumb on the 5th string instead of the 6th string for both bass notes. So we have 2 groups here, 8, 7, 5, a group of 3 notes, and then 5, 7, 8, another group of 3 notes. Both of those groups need to start with a 5th string open. So we go down 8, 12, 10, 8 with our pinky. We set up our bar, half bar with our index finger, and our pinky stays at 8. But our thumb also moves to the 5th string. And then we play our arpeggio P and A, M, I. So P and A, M, I, while our pinky holds 8. And then it's 7th fret, then 5th. And then for the next 5th fret, we get a bass note again. Back to 7, back to 8. So our new material is pretty challenging. And it goes 12, 10, 8 with our pinky. Put the bar down, prep your right hand thumb in its new spot, and then 8, 7, 5, and then new group with our thumb again, 5, 7, 8. So in context from the beginning, sounds like this. 7, 7, 7, 5. Pinky on 8, set up. And that's plenty for 1 week. Get used to that bar, and then we'll add more. Okay, have fun.